Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Here basically we are discussing about one topic, that is city creation. In city creation we are talking about Microsoft creation. The target is 1 lakh kilogram sand basically, that is equal to lava. In this basically one of the person universe group told that basically you have to do each and every testing basically before you implement your product in universe, that is in sky basically, where basically the earth planet is moving. So he told that okay basically. So he started doing the each and every testing basically. Few groups told that basically if you want to do testing basically, then do your testing like this basically. Create sand and test the sand basically. Fire basically from your energy basically. If anybody, for example, if any of the object basically you want to fire, then you fire it up to what level you can fire basically, and up to what level authority you have got. Create the lava also, create water also, create tree also, create medicines also, create disease also, create lights also, create powers also, create earthquakes also. Earthquake is also basically there. For example, 1500 Bangalore city basically buildings basically. So that also you check. And this all basically power is six. Then RDX basically. RDX, that basically very simple basically, everybody knows basically. RDX means where basically the if you want to do bomb blast basically, then basically RDX are used. And in RDX basically without power supply, without this group basically and satellite group basically, you can't do anything basically. Can't do anything means you can't blast a few 15 kilometer 15 steps also basically from RD. If you have the entire bag with the RDX also, if you have entire buildings also basically, the entire building is basically full of RDX, then also you can't blast the few 15 16 30 40 steps also basically, if it's an entire building basically. So without this group basically, RDX is zero basically, that is nothing basically. So these groups and this group basically gives the RDX material basically, that take this RDX material basically and whatever wherever basically you want to do the bomb blast, tell us basically. Tell us means this groups only basically takes the requirements basically, that this area basically have to do bomb blast. And like this basically this groups takes the requirement, and like this basically they prepares the RDX. Or it might possible that the nuclear company, power company, they basically might give the requirement, give the data to these groups, and these groups prepares the RDX basically. Because this group basically directly might not get the access basically, because power company are there in the many cities basically, and in nuclear power company basically are, that is basically in India basically very less nuclear power companies are basically. So like this basically they checks the each and everything basically. Now basically each and every second basically of the each and every sector basically with the Oxford group basically count. Means Oxford group basically has given the each and every data to the Microsoft Energy basically, and do tell that basically this is your area basically, and 30 words basically you have given, 35 words basically you have taken, and like this basically things are there. And this many in this basically Microsoft groups had done this achievement, this basically we have saw everything basically. This till 18 basically. Other points also basically, if anybody basically gets any idea with that if any in future basically if Microsoft read this basically, then Microsoft will say that this basically I think you are left basically, I think. So he can add here basically. So this basically comes into the open source basically, like PHP and Python basically. So like this few people says that PHP and Python and sometimes basically .NET is also open source basically, but that in front of the groups basically. So one of the person told that each and every basically coding basically, that is the coding tools basically, that are open source only basically, but they are open source in front of certain groups basically. For example, I was basically whenever when I was basically normal coder basically, means I was not a good coder basically, but I know this whole thing basically. That time basically .NET basically was not open source. Therefore, that for me basically, for developers like that time basically was the people basically was working in the Accenture, this that basically, but who are working as a freelancer in Microsoft basically, for there basically it's a open source basically. .NET is a open source basically. Lots of people say that no, .NET is not open source basically, but .NET is open source. C++ is also open source basically, and C is also open source basically. Why? But for which group basically? That is for certain level of groups basically, who have basically reached up to certain level of access basically. They can have these tools, that tool. One example basically I have taken, one Java building is there, one Microsoft building is there. Missile both group basically created. Java building blast, and Microsoft building also blast basically. The Microsoft developer basically checked the code basically, where basically the user control was used as a building basically, building equal to user control. That basically user control was not able to load basically when the power supply was, as if that power supply is also basically latest power supply. So same way basically in Java also user control was not loading. Reason, Java building was also blast basically. It's like same way basically, same thing basically. So one of the person today like this, each and every things basically are connected. So this group basically are the main group basically, and these groups are basically getting the data from Sanskrit and Tamil group basically. And Sanskrit and Tamil group says that basically we also have got the data from set of symbolic group basically, that are basically, if you search in the internet basically, currently basically it's not showing basically, but previously it was showing that a symbolic few books are basically there, who actually created by the universe group, and they periodically comes to the earth planet, and they basically sits with that group basically, who basically are into the education side basically, not education side basically, who are into the character side basically. Because if the normal person basically, like the one person is not educated basically, for example in USA basically, USA people basically are not, a few people are not educated, that doesn't mean that they can't speak basically, they can speak English very powerful basically. So they can speak English, so that means they know English, right? Basically they know English na basically. That means it's not only connected with that symbolic book is not connected with only the education group basically, but it's connected with the entire 900 crore people basically. So the group basically who say that basically we have prepared the 900 crore energy basically, for that basically they say that basically we are basically the group basically who told that basically we have created that entire, they have kept this also basically. That means that group basically know that basically that character equal to thousands of planets, and thousands of planets are equal to single character and single number, each and everything basically they knows basically. So like this basically things are basically there basically. So one of the person told that yes basically lava basically is up to that level basically, lava creation is up to that level basically. So one of the person told that yes basically the lava holes, there is no lava hole basically created for the software company basically. The software company basically groups say that basically we basically also require the different lava hole basically, and that basically mostly if software industry is basically running since 1950 basically, then basically 100% they might have created the lava holes long before basically. But it's not so easy basically. Reason to create one single energy basically, how many times basically it takes basically. So that might be not be created, that might be 100%, that might not be created basically. It might be possible that it might not be has created basically. So like this basically things are basically there. So like this things basically are there basically. So one of the person told that yes basically lava industry basically are connected up to that level basically. So one of the person told that the lava industry basically up to that level basically. So up to that level basically things are basically there. So see basically again I'm basically applying the data. Few people says that what is PSM basically. Let's search basically what is PSM. Professional Scrum Master basically. So that is PSM basically. So how many experiences? Scrum basically was previously also when Scrum certificate was not there. That time also Scrum basically was the people basically of the software industry basically was using the Scrum na basically. With the technology actually created just now. So in next video basically we are going to see a little more about this.